So welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. I know that we're on the fourth day of the conference. Luckily, it's not after lunch, so maybe people are still awake and just had coffee. We're going to talk about fantastic qualities and how to find them, because as most of you know, naming things is hard, and Chirac just let me know that that was a reference that I didn't get. So welcome. For those of you who still don't know me, even though Andrew just introduced us, I'm Carlos Alvarez. I've been around ExpensiConX for about 10 years. And this is... I'm Alberto Gonzalez. I've been with ExpensiConX for almost 40 years now. Time does fly for the first time in the middle of it. Cool. And as you can see, we practiced this thinking we would have lapel mics. So that worked out well. Cool. So this presentation, we're going to split it in two parts. I'm going to talk about the three core qualities. And then Alberto's going to talk about what we call the me versus us problem. And so let's get it started. So have you ever noticed how there's some people that always seem to get a lot of stuff done? They always seem to be very productive. They always seem to be very motivating and very inspiring. But above all, they seem to be like a pleasure to work with. You're always excited when you're assigned to work with them. You're always looking forward to collaborating with them. And when you think about why that is, it's rarely about, it really doesn't come down to their genius, to how tall they are, or what sports they play, or how many tequila shots they can do in one night, or how quickly. And at ExpensiConX, we've spent a lot of time talking about a lot of things, and we've spent a ridiculous amount of time talking about what makes an employee the ideal employee, what makes an employee kind of embody these qualities. And before I dive into that, with your permission, I want to brag for a little bit. So let's start. Did you know that we were the smallest company to put out a Super Bowl commercial in 2019? We did it in collaboration with 2 Chainz and Adam Scott, 2 well-known celebrities in the United States, and we're very proud of the outcome. If you haven't seen the video, check it out. Did you know that we also have the largest SQLite database in production? And we also happen to have the inventor of SQLite here in the room. Very happy about it. This is the hardest part, not clicking these buttons. And did you know that we were the fastest company to launch a corporate car from start to finish? We did it in about 6 months. And so I want to, before diving into the 3 core qualities, I want to tell you a personal story about when I applied to ExpensiConX. So this is back in 2013. I applied for ExpensiConX, and I've been developing websites for some years now. I learned very young, and I could throw together some HTML, put some lipstick on it with CSS. Nothing was aligned, nothing looked good. But I could make things disappear here. You could click a button there, and the page would kind of change dynamically. And I used to call myself a webmaster. For those of you who remember that term, it was just like a term to brag about. Professional web developer. I've been working with restaurants, and I did Ruby on Rails apps and Sinatra apps and stuff like that. So I really thought, I can bring a lot of value. I can get shit done on day one. I can essentially, start contributing to the company very quickly after I get onboarded. And on my first week, I realized very quickly that was not the case. So I didn't know how to set a debugger. I didn't know how to set breakpoints in the browser. I didn't know how to use the Chrome developer tools. And so on week 2, I start to feel like maybe they got confused. Maybe I'm not going to make it in this job. I don't know if I got what it takes. I see everybody's just getting so much stuff done. I'm so lost still. And I guess quick show of hands if you've ever felt like you're not qualified for a job. Amazing. So the beautiful thing about that is that that's very common. We all suffer from it. And I guess now you fast forward 10 years, and here I am. I'm proud to say that I've worked on many of ExpensiConX code bases, and I've learned to push myself out of my comfort zone, which is one of my favorite things here. And so you're now witnessing my very first presentation since I joined ExpensiConX. And so that's really the beauty of it. Push yourself out of your comfort zone and surround yourself with a team of talented people. So what is talent? Our 3 core qualities are talent, ambition, and humility, like I said before. And in short, we define them as talent is the ability to figure things out. Ability is the desire to achieve results. And humility is the persistence to agree. Now, this might be a little weird of a definition for humility, but it'll make sense once we start talking about it. So the main thing I want you to take away from this is that these skills aren't like innate skills that you get at birth. These aren't encoded in your genes. These skills, at least in this context that we're going to talk about, are skills that you can improve on and perfect with time and with effort. So We all got what it takes, and our skills, I like to think that they make great generalists. And I'm going to talk about what that matters. So, again, before talking about what talent is, or actually, let's dive right into it. So, if you think about skills as a measure of the things that you know and that you understand, you can think about talent as a measure of the things you can figure out. And like I said before, I thought in my interview I was showing that I had a lot of knowledge, or I was confident that I could bring a ton of knowledge into the company, and that wasn't the case. And the reason this matters is because we have a very lean team. As you know, we talk about 140, 150 people. It's gone up and down a little bit, but we have a very small team for the things that we do. And as you know, big tech companies have laid off, I think at this point, over 100,000 employees. And during all that time, we've never stopped hiring. And so that means that we need our team to be a team of generalists, a team of people that wear many hats, and a team of people that can jump into anything and figure things out and get shit done and add value to the company and push things forward. So that's why that's really important for us. And the way we screen for it in interviews, at least for engineering interviews, is we present our candidates with 2 technical challenges. These are timed, but they're open book challenges. So, the candidates can use Google, they can use Stack Overflow, they can ask us questions when they get stuck, and we want them to ask us questions. We want this to be an exercise in collaboration. We don't want this to be a test to see just what knowledge they brought and if they can actually display that knowledge, because that's a very tricky sort of situation to be to try to display your best skills, right? And so that's kind of how we screen for it. But how do we cultivate talent? How can we work on improving on this skill, right? One approach that you can take is to take something that you know very well, whether it's Reanimated or New Dots or something in old ExpensiConX, and find the things that you think about as working as a black box, or when you find yourself talking about things, how they work under the hood or behind the scenes. Every time you use these terms, dive in and try to figure out every little detail about that thing that you don't understand. Usually, you'll find a ton of knowledge. You'll discover a lot of things along the way. Another one that I like is fix the bugs. Everyone always says, Carlos, you love bugs. You always talk about bugs. You've been around for 10 years, so you're probably not fixing the bugs. I see why you're talking about bugs, but when I started, I decided to fix every bug that we had. I was kind of remote, and I didn't know how to start adding value. And I found that when you dig into bugs, you start navigating parts of the code that you maybe wouldn't have before, because you have to understand how every part of the code interacts with each other. And bugs are a great way to kind of understand a code base and develop this skill. A different approach is to grab something that you have no idea about. So go to Upwork, find the highest paying, most complex, oldest job, and try to figure it out. Grab it. If you can't, that's fine, but ask questions, collaborate with the team, and see what you can do for it. I'm sure you're gonna learn some stuff. And so, to close the loop on talent, like I said, I didn't demonstrate that I had a ton of knowledge with me, but I did demonstrate some ability of figuring some things out, and that's the reason I got hired. Full disclosure, I also brought cookies to the interview, so it was either that or the talent, but for the purpose of this presentation, we're gonna assume it's talent. I put some examples here, and this is part of wearing many hats and trying to figure out things that we don't know, whether it's our high voting share class or SOX compliance, React Native, Reanimated, anything like that. A lot of times we have to find the right experts and work with them and collaborate with them, even for the things that we don't really dominate, even for the things that we don't really know about. So that's all I have on talent. Let's talk about ambition. And we have a little extraterrestrial guy here. You might think where I'm going already. But I want to tell you a little story about daily settlements. So I talk about our corporate card, and I think we might be back to 2019. Forgive me, I don't have a good notion of time. But, money is free. A lot of new tech startups are coming up. They're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. We start to see some competitors offering what they call smart cards. Nothing smart about them. But they're offering corporate cards for startups that can never get credit from bigger banks because they have a different business model, very huge risk profile and stuff like that. So these companies start gobbling up customers. They raise hundreds of millions of dollars, put advertising on San Francisco, New York, all the airports, really everywhere. They're just growing a ton. They're using the traditional sales model and advertising model that big companies use. And at this point, they're big competitors. They're taking a lot of the market share that we're now trying to get into. And at that point, it can feel very intimidating to kind of build a solution that's going to go against these new giants of the smart card world, right? So we always try to think big. We always try never to let that stop us. So when you're feeling that way, maybe take comfort in the fact that usually people root for the little guy. If I were to say today, we should develop a new app store and compete with Apple, a lot of you would think, that's never going to happen, Carlos, you're crazy. But probably most of you would think in the back of your heads, I hope you succeed. There's probably a lot of things that would improve if you actually get this done. So I'm going to root for you. And that always keeps us, pushing forward. And so how did we actually end up launching the card and competing in this space, right? We didn't have a lot of excess cash. Just like we're a lean company, we've never really raised a ton of money to have excess cash in the bank that we didn't know how to use and how to deploy. And we did that intentionally. David, since the very beginning, was very adamant about raising money that we didn't know how to spend, because that just leads to giving up a lot of equity in exchange for this money, and that means diluting the value of our shares, which we never want to do. But the downside is that we didn't have hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank, and that means we couldn't fund a traditional corporate card, which uses monthly settlement. So for those of you who don't know, monthly settlement means the company, like let's say we provide corporate cards for many companies. Employees in those companies swipe, spend a lot of money. And then 30 days later, we add all of those amounts and build a company for it. And so their balance is zero, and we start over. But if you do that, every 30 days, you're essentially accumulating 30 days of expenses from many companies, from many employees. And that's what requires a lot of cash for you to fund those transactions in the meantime while you get paid back. And so because we didn't have a lot of cash, we started talking about daily settlement. So essentially doing that process every day. Companies, employees spend. We build a company every day and start from zero over and over. And when we're talking about this internally, we talk a lot about this. Nobody can really come up with a reason why this is a bad idea. We're all talking about it in the context of if nobody's doing this, then it cannot be a good idea. Otherwise, everybody will be doing this, right? Corporate cards have existed for years. This is not a new thing. Why isn't everybody doing this? We ask accounting. They're like, no reason here. That would be awesome. Like, it reduces our risk too. And so we're okay. We're going to do daily settlement. I bet it's going to be the next big thing. And so we start trying this with beta customers. And our beta customers tell us this actually works. It works for them. It solves their problem. And there's a competitive advantage to it. So we're like, bingo. And so we launched this card. We offer daily settlement as if it's no big deal. Everybody starts going crazy and talking about daily settlement. How could this be? Everybody starts using it, and it works. And so fast forward maybe a year or two, and now all our competitors are offering daily settlement. So this is why we never should let our own fears, really kind of what Anu was talking about. This is what we always have to push ourselves forward and try to keep that forward momentum, because chances are, even if we have to course correct, we'll find a good solution for what we're trying to do. And that's what ambition is, and kind of also why it matters a ton to us. Another reason is we are not passionate about expense reports, at least not on Earth anymore. We want to get to 1 billion users. We want to eradicate homelessness. We want to provide seamless payments for developing countries. And yes, we want to be the expense reporting solution of Mars and the Moon, from what I hear, but we haven't figured that one out yet. Now, how do we screen for this? This is a little bit trickier, and I'm not going to give you too many details about this, but if you try to apply for ExpensiFi, you go to our jobs page, we're going to ask you to answer 4 questions. And one of those questions is, what do you want to do with the rest of your life, and how can ExpensiFi help? How is ExpensiFi a step towards that goal? And the majority of people think we don't take this question very seriously, but I'm here to tell you we take this question very, very seriously. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So how to cultivate it. This is, it might be tricky to think, how do you sort of put ambition in practice? But at ExpensiFi, there's actually a very actionable way of doing it, because we're all over the world. We're in many different time zones, and that means a lot of what we do is in writing. So ambition a lot of times comes to write it down. You probably heard us talk a lot about writing it down. And that means just writing down a compelling plan and also having the conviction to pursue it day after day, even if it's step by step, and knowing that we might make mistakes, and that's okay. That's not something that should stop us, but something that should actually encourage us to continue forward. Don't take it from me, take it from Dalai Lama. He said that if you think you're too small to make a change, try sleeping with a mosquito. If you slept with your doors open like I have been doing, you might know what I'm talking about here. So let's move on to humility. And I want to start this with another story. So again, I think we're in the Super Bowl. I think this is pre-commercial. So this is before February. It might be at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. So we have this huge Super Bowl commercial, huge marketing event, and we want to capture as many users as possible. And so we decided that we want to let people sign up with Facebook, Snapchat, the new thing that hadn't come out, and also phone numbers. And so I started looking into what it takes to update every single line of code in every single one of our code base. Anything that touches an email, validates an email, does something with an email, extracts a domain with an email, now has to work with a phone number. And so I scoured the code base, found every single spot that we needed to update, and realized that it was going to be very tricky. It was going to take a long time. There was a risk of very weird bugs to happen. And as we were discussing all this, I was like, well, you know, it's pretty ready. Like, we know what we have to do. I have a plan. Like, we just have to do it quickly. And we were on a time crunch, obviously, like always. And as we were discussing all this, after I put a lot of hours and a lot of work into this plan, there's an alternative that's proposed. And the alternative is, instead of updating every line of code to handle both email addresses and phone numbers, how about we just append a fake domain to a phone number and just call it a day? We store it as an email. It's going to be the phone number at expensify.sms that doesn't exist, and it will be much faster. It's going to be, like, the risk of bugs is really just displaying at SMS in some part of the website or the mobile app, and the fix is very easy. Just, you know, remove SMS domain, which we have a function for now. And so I essentially had to go back to the drawing board, detach myself from that solution that I had poured a lot of time into, figured out how we were going to do the thing with the fake email domain, and then propose it. And then we all agreed that that was the best solution. We managed to implement it in time. Andrew can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we released the final version that was supposed to be used for the Super Bowl the day before. Like, the afternoon before, we're discussing, we can't do this, we can't launch it, it's going to break. If the app, you open it and it breaks, it's worse than not being able to sign up with a phone number, because you can't sign up with an email either. So we decided to, you know, take the risk. It worked out, and now I can say that we've had, I think, thousands of phone signups every day since then. Obviously, not all of them convert to paying users, but we did capture as many leads as we wanted to with this solution. And we really had to essentially, or I had to kind of throw my first solution away, even though I spent hours on it, and trust that the consensus that the team had arrived on was actually the best solution. And that's what really allowed us to deliver this functionality. So what is humility in more like specific terms, without that abstract story that I just told? First, I'll tell you what it is not, or what we don't consider it is. We don't think as ambition as climbing some hierarchical ladder at a company. What we think of is, did I switch back? I told you this was the hardest part. Oh no, I switched back in my head. I'm talking about humility here. Yes, so humility is not, you know, a lack of confidence. It's not a, I define it as the persistence to agree, and that's really what I meant. That's what I was trying to illustrate with that design doc proposal. We essentially, you know, the way we design solutions, as you may have heard, is really tricky. So first you design a solution in private, then you run it by a couple of people, you get sort of some sort of agreement to what you're going to present in public, and then you literally send it to all@expensify.com. And then everybody else's job is to find every flaw in your design. Here we are again. Find every flaw in your design, poke all the holes that they can, tell you, I don't think that's a good idea, I think this is a better idea, I think we should actually do this way instead of the way that you propose. And when you are approaching this from a humble place, you see all this, you're very grateful that people took the time to read the plan and try to make it better. You're never thinking that people are trying to slow you down or hold you back or anything like that. And that's key for like literally everything that we do. We ask for feedback from everyone every time. I think I told you earlier in the panel that I'm a professional disagreeer, and I developed that skill here at Expensify. And really that's why it's important for us that we approach this from a humble place, and we assume good intentions from our team because we're all trying to build the best solutions. And a lot of times that requires input from really everyone, and no matter where they are. So how to cultivate it? This is a little bit tricky, and this might be sort of generic, but I think the way we do it is by trying to be transparent, try to be collaborative, and try to create and foster an environment that promotes these things. So I think, I guess before I let you go and hand this off to Alberto, I want to make a note about imposter syndrome, which is something Anu mentioned today. I think we all suffer from it. One of the secrets of life that I tell younger people than me is that everybody is trying to figure things out as they go. Whether they're the president or a kid or a young programmer, an experienced programmer, I bet even the most experienced programmers here sometimes feel like inadequate or that they don't belong. That happens to me. And so that's all I wanted to say. I think fostering these qualities are going to be helpful for you in your professional life and also in your personal life. So, keep those in mind, try to foster an environment that promotes these three qualities, and I bet it'll lead to a lot of success. So now I'll give it up to Alberto.
Okay, let's give Carlos a big round of applause. Yeah, not too bad for a guy that bribed himself to Expensify with cookies, right? He's going to fire me. Since we are at it and you're already warmed up, a big round of applause for me. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you for this very deserved, enthusiastic applause. So I'm going to ride on what Carlos said and develop what I call the me versus us problem. I've been thinking about this for a while, and it all started with the different conversations I've had about Expensify with my family, friends, and even with some of you guys this week. They ask different questions, right? One I've gotten a lot lately here is, why do Expensifiers stay for so long with the company, right? I've been here for 4 years, and I'm below average in tenure. And a very common one is, what do you do at Expensify? And part of the answer to both those questions usually is, well, I get to do whatever the fuck I want. I don't have anyone telling me what to work on. I can choose whatever project I want to work on. I can even make my own projects and work on them. I don't have anyone telling me what to do. And then they follow up with a very reasonable question, which is, what are you working on right now? And I tell them, well, I'm working on X project. I'm doing that because I think that's very valuable for the company. That's great for Expensify. And after answering these questions a bunch of time, something clicked. When did Expensify trick me? How is it possible that I work on whatever I want I work with exactly what Expensify wants me to work on? And that's how the me versus us problem arose, right? We have determined that we hire people based on these three qualities, two of which are we hire very talented, very ambitious people. And those characteristics, even though desirable, are often characteristics of very individualistic people. Not 100%, but there is certainly a big overlap there, right? How do we get, and that's how I define the me versus us problem, how do we get a group of highly individualistic people, highly talented, highly ambitious, to work, give them freedom to do whatever they want, and still get all of them to row together into the same direction? I'm sure there are a bunch of ways, but I've been looking into how I think Expensify managed to trick me. So I think this is our solution. The first one is very obvious, is kind of generic, and everything falls into that one, right? Create an environment where their talent and ambition can thrive. Even though it seems very generic, I want to step for a moment on this one and paint a picture for you. If you're in this room, you've probably been in this situation. You're in high school. Freshman, sophomore, any other words that the American made not to use numbers determining where they are. But you're there in high school, and the teacher, and all the teachers had this terrible idea at least once a year. Let's have the kids make a group project. Yeah, you know where this is going. And they follow that with a second terrible idea. And let's make the group members random. So you end up in a group of 4 people. You know this. 4 people you barely know. You kind of know. Maybe there are friends. I don't know. But in base case scenario, one of them is going to do shit. And the rest of you will do the project. Worst case scenario, 3 of them are going to do shit. you're going to do the whole project, and they are all going to get the same grade you got. Now, you're adults now. You don't want to be working in an environment filled with those people that didn't do shit. We want to create an environment that is filled with those people that are willing to take the whole group, carry the whole group, get the project done alone, and then make sure they never have to do that. And that is something that ExpensiConX does very well. Next one, it is impossible to get people to row in the same direction if they don't know where they're going. We have clear goals, right? We're going to Mars, we're going to 1 billion users, and we are all working together to get there. The third one comes back to what I said before. I get to do whatever I want. Why? Because ExpensiConX treats me like an adult. They give me a job, and they expect me to do my fucking job. That's it. I don't have anyone looking over my shoulder. I don't have anyone doing any of that. Why? Because we trust our employees, and we trust them because we trust our hiring process. Carlos touched on that, but our hiring process is grueling. It takes a long, long time. I'm in the engineering hiring team, so I've been on both sides, right? I used to be a candidate. I was a candidate once. And I know how hard it is for a candidate to go through our very lengthy, very tough hiring process. But I also know how tough it is for us. We have 6, 7, 8 people at least involved in an interview. It takes weeks. The on-site is a full day where you have one dedicated person on you the whole time, and a bunch of other people using their hours, using their time, their effort to get you to the end. So, after we go through that process, we're gonna trust that person. We know they can do it because we've put them through the test. And I think that's one of the great things that ExpensiConX has managed to do, is have a very thorough hiring process. Next one, humility. We'll come back to this later, but humility is I think it's the quality that ties the other two together, right? It is very hard to control talent and ambition together if that person is not also humble, and we'll come back to this later. And the third one, we don't have a manager. We don't have anyone over our shoulder. We don't have clear goals, step-by-step set up for us. So we need to have feedback. We need to have communication between our members. We need to hold each other accountable because no one else is going to do it. And I think that's how it works. So in the end, how I see all of this defined and how I see what I think all of this means is that we are trying to encourage these 3 qualities that we talked about. And by doing so, we are pushing people towards the path that we want them to go. People like doing what they are good at. A football player likes to play football, likes to get better, train, get props because they're a good football player. A climber will get new mountains, learn new techniques, get new equipment, and, get better. A hater, they like to hate, they're going to go on Twitter. You know how it goes. So talented people like to use their talents, and ambitious people, obviously, like to fulfill their ambitions. And that's how we are going to treat them. That's how we're going to get them. First, fostering talent. We have several ways, several tools for people to develop and use their talents at ExpensiConX. One of my favorite ones is the What's Next process. You guys have heard of it, our problem-solution approach to things. It's not only for bugs, it's not for small things. It can be for anything. Anyone at ExpensiConX, and soon any one of you, can just make a big proposal, have it discussed by the team, and can make huge changes to the company. If you're a talented person, you like this. You're going to enjoy that. Making big changes from day one, that's encouraging. Next one is comp review. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our compensation review process, but it is a democracy. Every single employee, it's not mandatory, but at least I'd say 80 of the employees participate in it, and the other 20% is because they don't want to. But you get basically 2 people, some stats, you investigate, and you decide who should make more. And in this case, for talent, it's not about the money. It's about the kudos. The good job, you did a great job. And this is the ultimate example of putting your money where your mouth is. It's great. You did a good job. Yeah. But this proves it. And that encourages you to use those talents towards getting those props, that sense of fulfillment. Carlos also touched on how we are all generalists. In ExpensiConX, being a generalist is not being a jack of all trades, master of none. It's actually the other way around. You choose one problem, you delve into it, and you become really, really good at that area. And then you let it go. and go to a different area. And then once you master that, you move on. And eventually, you become kind of a master of all situation. And that's also, for a talented person, learning new things, being continuously challenged. That's really good. And once again, that's good for ExpensiConX too, right? You're getting to learn, you're becoming a better employee, you're learning everything that ExpensiConX needs you to learn. Next one, we go back to feedback and communication, and it ties with our flat structure, right? So yeah, that ties with the feedback, as I mentioned before. And if you see all of these together, what this does is encourage people to do what they want, because that's good for them. It encourages their talents. When you get that feedback that pushes you to use your talents towards something, or tells you, hey, you did a great job doing this, you kind of move a little bit there, right? As you become a generalist and you increase your talents, you kind of move a little bit there. And you can see slowly how your individualistic path kind of overlaps with what ExpensiConX wants. What's next is interesting because it goes the other way around, right? You're pushing ExpensiConX's path towards yours instead of correcting yours that way. But even though, it's great to have fun and to use your talents, and we all enjoy it, we're here to work. We're here to make money. We're here to fulfill our ambitions. How do we do that in ExpensiConX? How we encourage people to fulfill their ambitions? As Carlos mentioned, we have this question at the very beginning of our interview process. What do you want to do for the rest of your life, and how can ExpensiConX help? For all of us, we're so ambitious that ExpensiConX, the company that is going to Mars, is just a stepping stone towards our real goals. So, to get people here, to get people to work for ExpensiConX and to have them remain here, we need to make sure we are pushing them towards those goals they have. Growth tracks, extremely important, love them. We have 4, but really only 3 that are that relevant. One is, it's true, one is just surviving in the company. But for the other ones, we have one that is focused on public speaking. That's what I'm doing this year. We have one focused on managing people, extremely important skills. Managing projects, another one. Any person that has a big ambition is going to benefit from growing on these areas. And coincidentally, are also going to become a better ExpensiConX employee by doing so. So once again, we can see that. Comp review, this time for real, money. It's not just the props, you want the money. It's true. If anything you want to do in the future is going to be easier if you have more money. So there's that. Again, you want to become better. You have ambitions. You need to fulfill them. What do? You learn. At ExpensiConX, if you are taking classes, you're taking courses, you want to improve in your area, we'll pay for it. Simple as that. And the next one is extremely important, company ownership. Every single ExpensiConX employee gets at least 30% of their compensation in the form of shares. You want those shares to grow? You want more? Company needs to grow. You need to work for the company, get it better. And look at that, trust is there again. I talked before about how the company needs to trust the employee. In this case, it goes the other way. If the employee cannot trust the company's goal, does not trust the company's vision, if the employee cannot see their ambitions fulfilled within the company, there is no way we're going to get that person to push in the direction we want the company wants them to push. And for the last one, we go back to humility. As I said before, we are all talented, we are all ambitious, but we need to be humble. Talented, ambitious people are great individuals, but it's hard to work with them as a group, unless they are humble. And I want to see humility, once again, since the point of trust. With surprise, surprise, he's here again. I'm not that surprised because I'm the one who made the slides, but but we've talked about trust from the company to the employee, from the employee to the company. In this case, the humility-based trust is a trust in your colleagues. You need to look around and know one thing and believe it, that every single person in this room, you look one side or the other, every single person here is at least as talented as you are. And that is the only way you can have a talented, ambitious person can work with the group. That is the only way where you can have the humility, as we defined it there, the persistence to agree. Otherwise, you go in there with an idea, a solution, and yours is the best solution. Of course it is. You're so talented. without that humility, without the idea that any other person has exactly the same chance you have of being right, you cannot enter anything assuming best intentions. And certainly, feedback doesn't really matter if you don't think that the person giving you the feedback is worth as much as your own opinion. So yeah, this is, I know we've peppered a lot of things here for the me versus us problem, but I think the summary or the idea I want you all to go with is that, you're here, in front of you are a bunch of paths, any number of paths, right? And some of those paths take us to Expensify goals. One of the paths takes us to Mars. The other one takes us to 1 billion users. There's a third path there. It's a bit weird, but there is an empire full of swanky pyramids there. And there are other paths that you can also take that don't lead to Expensify goals, and you're free to do so. However, the ones that take us to Expensify goals are littered with good shit. There is money there, there is growth, you get to use your talents, people are excited about working with you, all of that. Expensify has managed to put all of that across the path that gets to you to the Expensify goal. So you're not taking that path because you want some more pyramids. You're taking that path because it's good shit for you. So yeah, I think Expensify did a great job at tricking me. But hey, make no mistake, I'm working on whatever the fuck I want. So yeah, if you have any questions for me, for Carlos, I want to tell you all that this is way harder when the room is full.
How a group of people can like swim in the same direction, and you said that it's important to have like the same goals, right? And then you said the goals like 1 billion users and going to Mars, and these are like quite high level goals. And like in your day-to-day job, when you try to make a decision of what project to take on next, are there like smaller goals that you can align on, and where are those goals defined, and how does the company define them?
Well, I don't know if I agree that we all need to have the same goals. I think we need to know what the goals are. And yes, we have bigger goals for the company right now. And stop me if you disagree.
No, I guess I just want to say, for instance, some of the steps that we're taking towards, getting 1 billion users are Expensify chat. We're trying to make every user in a company use Expensify, chat with their colleagues, collaborate about like some expenses, do that back and forth. That's going to turn them into active users. We also start developing. So we actually pay ourselves, and that means that we have our own sort of payroll product, not product because it's kind of internal right now, but we're trying to figure out all the things that we have to do to allow companies to pay their employees all over the world, starting with the US, figuring out all the taxes, which is a nightmare. Like there's so many taxes and so many taxes entities in the US. But these are some of the more short-term steps that we're taking towards, getting to the moon.
And 1 second. And you mentioned that, how do we determine these goals? What's next process? Anything goes in there, and that's how we decide what the course the company is taking is. It's available for everyone. Anyone can participate. Anyone can steer the Expensify path closer towards their own personal path. And yeah, I think that's how we do it.
So I've got a couple of questions. First one from your part, Carlos. You said you moved from monthly settlement to daily settlement, and that was good for. I assume that was good for Expensify because that way you were getting paid faster from the companies. But how was that beneficial for your customers? Because now they had to pay you daily rather than what they were doing monthly. And yeah, so that was the first question. Okay, I'll ask the second one after this.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this, and I was talking about how we couldn't figure out why this wouldn't work, is that for the employee, there's no difference. They don't know if their company is paying us monthly or daily. Like they just swipe, and as long as the swipe works, everything's good. The swipe doesn't work, doesn't matter what settlement you have, like it just doesn't work, right? And for the admins also, this is pretty transparent because it all happens automatically. Like we obviously have automated billing and stuff like that. So this is also, as transparent to the admins as it can be. It's possible that, this is going to create more entries in the accounting book and stuff like that, but we also have automated reconciliation. So the idea is that you don't even know if you have daily settlement or monthly settlement. The decision is only important based on the company's cash flow, and that's pretty much like what leads them to make that decision. For us, it's more about a risk. It's less risk to provide company cards with daily settlement. And so what we try to do for those companies that want to take advantage of our corporate cards and have different cash flow challenges is that we start them on daily settlement, and then we essentially start building a risk profile. If they always pay us back, then we might get them to monthly settlement. If they've never paid us back, then they're never going to get it. Also, and we're not ignoring your question. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah, thanks. The second question was around ambition. So you said ambition to me is like either a generic word or a very broad word. So what does ambition mean to you, or how would you describe it?
So this one's super personal. I might even get a little bit emotional, but the way I answered that question, what David asked me, was I wanted to say Venezuela. And yesterday, I saw a couple of people. I almost started crying because I was sitting, with a Venezuelan colleague, the other Venezuelan guy that's here, Emilio. And also, we were at a table, and all the 6 people that are there are drinking the Venezuelan beer that they're serving here. So for me, that was like, okay, maybe we're helping in some way. And we talked about, providing payments with crypto in Venezuela, but that's kind of dangerous. And any sort of payment that you try to do there is really dangerous. So I'd be lying if I said, that kind of fear of getting in trouble there hasn't held me back. But I've also thought about, we have a cloud task which is based out of Medellin, and a lot of Venezuelan people migrated to Colombia, and so we're trying to figure out how to help people that's essentially had to migrate. How do we give them jobs and opportunities and stuff like that? And yesterday, I think for the first time it hit me that I had probably made a small impact, and there's a lot of potential to keep going.
I'll ask my question. So you said that you don't have a manager at ExpensiConX, but then you also mentioned that there is a growth track in management. So what's up with that?
So you're talking about the people track? I take that. Yeah, I don't have a manager, but I have a mentor. I have someone that is not going to tell me what I should do or what I would do. Someone where I meet with them every week or every other week, depending on the deal we have, and just tell them what I'm doing, ask them what they think. If I need feedback from the team, one bad day of imposter syndrome, they can get that for me. And that is the first level, right? The next level of managing people would be managing the group as a whole. Harder stuff. People are not producing what they should be producing. Things are getting harder, and that's what that human management track is for. It's not to manage the job of anyone. It's, I guess, to help people grow as employees.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is that the mentors program is kind of like the first level of this track, and a lot of times mentors help you put together a presentation like Anu did with us. This is like our first presentation here. We're probably better soccer players than public speakers. But then we also have our 2 rules: get shit done, don't ruin it for everybody else. And so the next level of that track is the leaders track, or the leaders sort of rung of the ladder. And that's just to help people get shit done. That's to help people when they're having issues, like pushing code, getting shit done. Then we'll pair them with someone that's going to help them develop those skills, overcome whatever challenges they're experiencing. Then our rule number 2 is don't ruin it for everybody else. And that's where our senior leaders come in. And it's more of those situations that, they're hard to anticipate. It's not that somebody's managing you constantly or working with you or figuring out whether you're working on the right thing or not. It's when something intentionally or unintentionally happens that we think it's unfair, and we just try to figure out how to, move forward and sort of make sure that we are applying everything equally to everybody. And then our final rung of that is the director's track, and that's just to deal with the most uncomfortable or strange situations that are what we call our no creep situation. So it's really not about directly guiding you towards on something. It's more about problem solving, but it's people problems rather than code problems.
Did you guys? This is more like personal experience on inside Expensify. Did you guys had a hard time? Well, not a hard time, but getting around like this. Everyone is, when you join a job, you are always expecting that you're going to have someone over you. Watching your work, making sure that you reach. Make your goals, finish your work or whatever. Do you guys had a process when you joined Expensify? Was it hard to adapt on, understanding that you could do whatever the fuck you want? So, yeah.
You can start. There is a process for sure. My job before Expensify was at a very structured 13,000 people company. I had a team leader, and that team leader had another something leader, and that all the way to the top, right? I met with this person every week. He told me exactly what the team was working on, and exactly what, I had some choices. Do you want to work on this or that? But it was very, very clear what I should be doing. And then I joined Expensify. The first thing we do is that we are very clear on the interview about how we work. And I think that's very important, because if you start a job and the structure is completely different from what you expect, it can be pretty crazy. But we have a trainer program. So when you start Expensify, they pair you, in my case, with another more experienced engineer that will guide me through the first few months, right? We have a whole onboarding process, bunch of GitHub issues. So I guess for the first couple of months, they do tell you what you need to do, at least to get familiarized with all the areas of the code. Those first 2 months are to give you a little bit the beginning of the tools for you to get deeper into the different areas on your own, and the courage to do so, right? I'm a trainer too, and part of the job as a trainer for new employees is look around, find small issues they can begin with, and just give them to them. And as they develop a little bit more, what I do usually is ask around if someone is working on a smaller project with a design they can start working on. So we have a process to get you introduced into that. And whenever they ask me a question and I have the answer, one of the things I often do is go to a public channel, find the right channel for that, and ask there. Because the only way the no manager situation works is if we have, as I say, lots of feedback and a very, very collaborative environment. So I'd say that those first couple of months are important to move from the mentality of someone telling you what to do to where do I need to look to find out stuff to do. Okay.
A bit of a tricky question, sorry to put you on the spot, but what you would do when there's a project that you want to do because you want to do it and you put it out there, and some people agree with you, some people don't agree with you. So it's how do you vote it out, or it depends on the problem, if even one person has negative feedback, could that stop the whole project?
Yes and no. I don't think I've ever seen it get to a close vote or anything like that, right? I've seen situations where everyone is 20 people, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And someone comes in, usually Yoni, and says, I don't think we should be doing this. And they explain the reasoning. And if you are going against 20 people, you probably have a pretty good reason for that. And that convinces people whether we should do it or not. Situations where, it's just really close and people are not sure, hear people's concerns. Why shouldn't we be doing this? What can I do to improve this project, to change it, so everyone can agree? And if there is a bunch of people agreeing with you, at least it probably has something good, right? And you can work from there to make it good enough for everyone to agree on it. Again, that is the persistence to agree that we mentioned before in the humility area.